Welcome back, listeners and followers, to Raw Thoughts Podcast. Super excited for things happening. Last week, I mentioned that the podcast will be sponsoring at Canyon County Paramedics Golf Tournament at Centennial on August 27th. So if you would like more information for that, definitely reach out to me. We are helping and raise money and awareness for teen suicide prevention. So super awesome. I would also love to invite you over to Apple Podcast and set up a review for me. So I'd love to hear what your feedback is of the podcast, maybe things that we could change, what you love about it, giving your honest feedback for me. Today, I have Bryson Smith with me from Synergy One. So a fun story is that one of my friends from high school, I know, 11 years ago, is a lender in Moscow. And he wrote me and he's like, hey, I have this friend. Like, I think he would be a great connection for you. Obviously, being in the real estate world, I've got a lender down there. Like, let's hook you guys up. So he emails me. I email Bryson. We connected, talked about coffee, all these things. And today, he's on the podcast. So welcome, Bryson.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. No, Brandon is a great guy, and I was super glad that he was able to connect us. But it was super cool getting to have coffee and then obviously getting to come on here. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, shout out to Brandon for sure. I had known him from high school. I have known his wife since I want to say like third or fourth grade. Like we played softball together. Phenomenal people. And it really shows too. I always tell people, like, be nice. You never know what's going to come back to you. And even after, not talking with them for 10 years, he's like, hey, taking on more business. Like, I got a client for you. They're moving down to the Boise area. So any younger kids listening, be nice. It really will pay off in the long run. So
it's funny how the friends from previous lives all of a sudden circle back, and the ones that you connected with or were nice back then, it's like they're still those same quality people, and it's just super cool to create connections off of that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bryson, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I moved to Boise here a couple years ago, but originally from Eastern Oregon, Baker City. Super small town, and Boise was actually like the big city that we would come visit or play sports at. And so Baker's about an hour and a half away from here, but grew up there, kind of small town stuff. My parents were both teachers. And from there, I decided to go to Oregon State University and study kinesiology, exercise science. And I wanted to be a physical therapist because I had knee surgery when I was a kid. When I was 12, I tore my ACL playing football.
Wow.
And that was, hard to get through. And my physical therapist was like one of my best friends that year because he just supported me. He was a cool young guy. And I just remember thinking like, I want to have that same impact on someone else. And, I was always into athletics and things like that. And so I thought it would fit. And I went to Oregon State. I studied that. And in the middle of my senior year, I was interning with the Oregon State Athletics physical therapy department. With their football team and their baseball team, and I thought I would enjoy it a lot. And it came down to, it was just a little repetitive for me, and I loved the people that I got to work with, but I didn't see myself doing it long term. And at that point, I was 3.5 years into an undergrad program that I didn't see myself using. And so that was a tough one for me, trying to figure out what those next steps were. And I remember connecting with my uncle who lives here in Boise. I was over here for other business that I was, partaking in. And we got together, and he is in the mortgage space in real estate, and he's lived in Boise forever. And he was just telling me how amazing Boise was and how amazing the people are and how you kind of get the best of all worlds, a big town feel, but kind of a small town feel at the same time. Yeah. Like you can run into people that you would have never thought, and it's like, wow, small world. And and the longer I've been here, the more I've realized that. But he convinced me to come over here, and it was going to be a summer internship with Synergy One Lending. And I didn't even know what mortgage lending was. I obviously knew what real estate was and being an agent, but I didn't know anything about like the banking space of that. And I interned, and I was kind of doing a lot of paperwork. And that was okay, but I was seeing what those loan officers were doing. They were connecting with clients. They were having first-time homebuyers come into their office, and these people were beyond grateful for their help to be able to kind of achieve that American dream or their dream in a sense and set themselves up for financial success. But in buying a home, I was like, I think I want to do that. So at the end of the summer, when I was supposed to be moving back to Portland, and at that time I had decided law school was my next step, I was like, I don't think I want to go back. And so I decided to stay and become a loan officer assistant for a well-established loan officer here in the Treasure Valley. And I got to connect with all of her clients, all of her agents, all of her referral partners. And it's just really a relationship-based experience. Yeah. And like we talked about, with your connection with, Brandon 11 years ago or his wife, like quality people are just fun to be around, and it doesn't make it feel like work.
Yeah.
And so I was able to kind of connect with all of her people, and I just really enjoyed it. And here, probably 8 months ago, I broke off on my own completely and from her and her team and made my own team. I still work right next door to her, but and I've in doing so, I've kind of created just my own mortgage space and my own clientele, and it's a lot of fun. I work with a ton of first-time home buyers as well as higher-end home buyers, and each one of them is a different experience.
Yeah.
And getting to work with agents like yourself or other agents, or refer people to other amazing people in the valley that I know, has been probably the best thing. And I love what I do, and I love the fact that it's all about connections and just quality.
Yeah, definitely connections and quality, because you can connect people and then you're like, I don't really like them, or they don't jive with me, or their personality, just doesn't fit.
Exactly.
It doesn't fit sometimes. So going to Oregon, you've spent all this money, you've done all these things, and you got to a point and you're like, I don't even like this.
Yeah.
How did you figure out what your next step was from that?
I remember I decided it was around Christmas time of my senior year. So I was halfway through the year, and I remember being home going, I just finished the first part of my internship. I still had like another month and a half left in January. And I was starting to have those doubts, and I was like, I have just spent 3.5 years, a lot of effort and a lot of money, obviously, with college expenses to get a piece of paper that I don't plan on using at this point. And so that there was kind of that soul searching moment where I was like, okay, what's my next step? One, it needs to be a step forward. I don't want to do a lateral step or a step backwards. And so what's that look like? And I started to think about like, okay, what are my life goals? What are the priorities for me? I want to wake up every day and interact with people. I want to wake up every day and not look at my job as like a job or a burden on me. Mm-hmm. And so I started to look at those kind of things. And I looked at law school simply because it created options, because you can do really anything with a law degree, not necessarily practice law, even though I'm intrigued by law. I wasn't sure that was a route that I wanted to go, but if anything, it would teach me a lot about, interacting with humans and human interaction and relationship building and that kind of stuff. And so that was kind of what I decided that I wanted to do. But in the meantime, I was like, okay, I want to move to a new place for 3 months for a summer internship. And that's when I connected with my uncle, and he was like, come to Boise, experience it. It's 2 hours from my favorite place, McCall, Idaho.
Yeah.
And it's 2 hours from Baker City, my hometown, which is where my parents and my grandparents still live.
Wow.
And so it was kind of the best of all worlds in the sense that I could live in a smaller city, but a big enough city that, I could kind of be my own thing and create what I wanted to in the 3 months that I planned on being here, as well as see my family, which is super important to me. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with Boise. I fell in love with the area and the people, and the life that you can live here. And then I fell in love with mortgage and real estate and getting to help people buy their first homes or their 12th home.
Yeah.
And so, it was like a tough process and soul searching moment, but I can honestly say like it all really fell into place in a completely lucky way. I had a lot of amazing mentors that kind of coached me through it, but it was never me making a decision ahead. It was me kind of just like reacting to the situations I was in and being like, I really like this. I'm going to pursue it a little more. And so at first I pushed off law school for a year. And about month like 4 after that, I was like, yeah, no, like I'm not going to law school.
Yeah.
Like maybe 5 years down the line if I happen to fall out of love with this, but to this day, it's gotten better and better. So.
Yeah. I love that you said that you didn't really plan this. It was more of a reaction, because I think a lot of people with college, they're like, oh, I don't want to go to college because I don't know what I want to do. And it's like your first 2 years, you're not doing anything specific. You have to do basically your kind of what they tell you to do. And within there, you can start siphoning through and figuring out like, okay, what does interest me? What doesn't interest me? And those internships, I wish that you could do them sooner.
Me too.
Because there is a lot of people that they get into the internships and they're like, oh, I hate this, or I don't like this, or, you know, what they teach you in any realm in class into the real day-to-day is so far off that it's hard to understand. You know, they're showing you, and this is for any profession, I would say, within college, is like they show you the glory and they show you, you know, kind of what you do overall, but they don't show you the day-to-day grind and what that actually is experienced. It's within that, like within your internship, what was it that you didn't like? Because you had a PT that you loved. You knew what, you know, kind of your experience was, and that gives you a good light to it. But what was it that you're like, nope, this is not for me?
Yeah, I remember there was 1 week and one day in particular that we had nothing but shoulder injuries with the baseball team. And it was 5 of basically the same shoulder injury. And we worked with them for, 4.5 hours. I think I was there that day. And we did the same exercises and the same routine with each of them. Now, granted, that's what they needed to heal. And the conversations with them was great. But the work started to get a little repetitive. Some of the conversations started to get repetitive. As much as the athlete loves to heal, they're still frustrated. And so it's not a fun time for them to be there. And so that was just, I'm a really upbeat person, and I love when the good vibes are flowing. And, as much as they were thankful for being healed, they're frustrated they're not competing. And so I can understand that from their perspective. But for me, it started to get a little repetitive. And I also started to get scared that, as you know, with physical therapy, you get your undergrad, you have to go to grad school to get your doctor of physical therapy degree and then licensing. And you can do one of 2 things with that degree. You can teach physical therapy classes at a college, or you can be a physical therapist. And so if I get 15 years down the line and realize that it's not something I enjoy, and I was already having some of those feelings in an internship that I had been in for, a few months, that started to worry me. And so I just kind of started to look at some of those other options, or at least recognize that, like, this may not be exactly what I want to do. Maybe it's still something within the sports world or the exercise science world, but I don't know that being the physical therapist is quite it. Even though I had the amazing experience I did, and the physical therapists that I was working with in the internship were amazing, like some of the most amazing people that I know. I just realized that personality-wise, I want something that's different every day. And as much as every injury is different, every client's different, it's still, there's only so many things that you can do in a day-to-day basis as a physical therapist.
Right. The tools that you are using for each client are still the same. It's just they change and what you talk about changes, exactly. But the skills that you're actually using are pretty much the same. And it's funny that you say that, because on my aspect, I feel like though the market is changing and, every home is different and everybody's, background is different in their finances, I feel like mortgage lending would be the same way for me. Like I would be like, nope, it's the same thing, day in, day out, you're looking at numbers, but that doesn't seem the case for you.
No, it's amazing. And I was actually reflecting on this with some work colleagues, earlier this week, or I guess it would have been yesterday. But it's like, as much as the baseline of things that we do is the same, as far as an application, people's information, W-2s, etc., what they're looking for is always different. Some person wants, they've got a financial goal of this is going to be an investment property in a few years. So how do we set ourselves up best for that? Well, it starts to break down numbers and things like that. And my mom was a math teacher. And so I love math. My dad was a science teacher, and so I think that's probably where the physical therapy interest came as well. But I've got somewhat of a math mind, and I like doing that and crunching numbers for people and taking a problem that like I want, like this is my dream house, this is the purchase price, and this is kind of my dream payment, and how do we get there? And sometimes the numbers don't crunch, but a good loan officer or someone, that really wants to deep dive into making those dreams come true for someone, you can typically get creative in some kind of space within mortgage to make that work for them. And those are the most thankful clients that, I've ever had.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that become friends beyond that. I was telling you last week when we went to coffee, I go on hikes with a lot of my clients afterwards, or lake days, or I just become friends with a lot of them because one, they're amazing people, but two, we created a connection kind of throughout their purchase process that goes beyond that. And so that's really enjoyable for me. But as much as there's similar things in the mortgage business as far as day to day, every loan and every client is different, and their goals are different, and the numbers are constantly changing because interest rates, as you know, fluctuate every single morning, and several times, like multiple times a day.
Yeah,
it'll fluctuate based on what the economy is doing, and so having to get creative with the number aspect of things is the challenge that I like chasing.
That's definitely for you, because numbers are not my sweet spot. I'm like, I can talk to anybody, but when it comes to lending, I'm like, you guys are my people. And that's why you have, good people surrounded by you, so that when, clients ask me, they're like, well, what would my payment be? And I'm like, I'm not even going to talk about it because I have no idea. There's so many variables in it, but I've got a person for you, and they're your person for you, and that's super, super exciting to watch, especially someone, so new within the industry, young, just like chasing. You're so hungry for all of these new things happening and this love for it. How is it? I mean, when you switched off of your team, we took a market shift. I mean, that's a lot. There's a lot of people that obviously got into the industry when it's booming, and there's gonna be a lot of people that get out of the industry when it's changing. So how are you combating leaving, kind of being that security with, the partner that you were with, and now you're doing it by yourself?
Yeah, no, that you're so right. And as we talked about, I broke off kind of at the beginning of the year, and about 3 weeks later is when the shift happened. That third week of January, rates started to change. The buying pool shrunk because everybody's like, recession. Like we've seen this 2008. Everybody was really scared of that. And so, the market shifted, and I was like, oh no. Like I just left a fairly secure spot and a fairly secure salary and everything like that to go, kind of try to make it on my own and prove something to myself and my colleagues. But to combat it, it's just been focusing on the relationships. And, any loan officer can do a loan, and any loan officer can take care of a client. But I just try to cater my experience that I want to give to the client and to the agent to them and their goals. And as well as, take that extra time to work with clients that may be a little more difficult to get qualified and may have, credit issues, and that's half of the job, is setting them up for just financial success in general. And half the time it doesn't even lead to them buying a home. And that's okay, because those are still people that like I'll get together with, because they're just thankful that like we walked them through, basic things in credit, like that we would have never learned and that we didn't learn in school. Like I wish we would learn some of these things at an earlier age, like about credit and how to build credit and what hurts your credit. And a lot of people don't know that. So just little tidbits of information like that can be super useful. But just taking the time and creating deeper relationships with my referral partners or my clients has been something that we've focused on as far as my team goes. And it's led to, I don't need a million referral partners, but the ones that I do have are really quality, and the clients that I have are really quality people. And so those connections can ride through any market. And so that's kind of what we've been focusing on. I also, when I was on my previous team, it was a big refinance boom. And so a ton of loan officers were doing a ton of refinances. And I was always told by my mentors, don't count on the refinances because they don't last forever.
Right.
As soon as the market shifts and rates go up,
They're over.
Yeah, refinances are done. And so someone that did 75% refis in the last 2 years, yeah, they did really well and they had a good income and had a great business. But now those are the ones going, like I didn't set myself up. And so I only focused on purchase business and my relationships with clients and referral partners and adding value to them, because not every referral partner is going to send me something or have a client for me, but I can be sending them quality information as well on the market, or, here's an insurance agent that you should totally be recommending to people because, they take care of them. And just adding value to others people's business has in turn, grown not only theirs, but mine. And it's a lot of fun. So it's that's been the main one, is just focusing on the connections and showing people that I care, because I'm in the business to help people. And if we can ride through the market, then we will.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting and different, from my perspective too, of, our buyer pool definitely shrunk. We had, an influx in inventory. We had interest rates increasing. Then we also had year over year, every summer it slows down. Everybody wants to be out doing stuff. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to, go look through homes. Like, that's not a priority. No. So it definitely is interesting writing that out. What would be a couple key points that you wish that younger folks could know with their credit score or how to purchase a home? I mean, you really talked about, if we could teach these in schools.
Right.
Like, there is so much in high school that all of us learned, and we're like, we won't ever need this, and we really don't.
No.
But then yet the stuff that we do need, we're not getting taught.
Exactly. Nope. That's a great question. And I think a lot of the things, even in my own life, I think about, like, I didn't know anything about, like, my first credit card or how I build credit, or, when I went to buy my first car with a loan, what any of that means, what the interest rate means, what's a good interest rate. But I think the main misconception is just, like, how to build quality credit. Everybody thinks, just get a credit card, put a balance on it, and pay it off every month. That's semi-true, but, a lot of people don't know that, if your balance is over 30% of what your credit line is, that's actually negative to your credit score. And even though you're paying it off every month, you're not going to gain much credit because you're constantly hitting it as when you go over that credit, that 30% credit balance, and then you're increasing it when you pay it off. And so people are like, my credit score is not moving. And it's like, well, here's my recommendation is get a credit card and just put little balances on it and pay it off every month until your credit limit increases enough that then you can be putting the majority of your purchases on and still staying way below that 30% utilization of your credit line. That's a big one. And then as far as home buyers go, I've got friends, that are graduating college, because I just graduated college here a few years ago. And they're like, I haven't been at my company for 2 years, or, anything like that. And that's a common misconception. And you don't have to have a 2-year work history. You have to have a 2-year history of doing something. And that could be, we have clients I've been a stay-at-home mom with my newborn for the last 1.5 years, and I just got a new job, and here's my offer letter. And, it outlines what their pay is going to be. They can qualify off something like that. Or, if you were a student and then you land a well-paying job and you want to go buy a home and have your friends move in and help, pay your mortgage, right, you can do that, because for the last 2 years, we can document what you've been doing. You've been a student, and here's your offer letter. All the investors or all, mortgage businesses really care about is consistency in pay, like how much of a liability you are. And so if you've got an offer letter outlining that you're salaried or you're guaranteed 40 hours a week, like, you can get qualified off that kind of stuff. And there's amazing programs here in Idaho, among many other states, that help first-time homebuyers get into homes for as little as 0.5% of the purchase price out of pocket. And so a $400,000 home, you can pay $2,000 total out of pocket and get into the home with a down payment assistance program. And those payments, even though they're higher because you're borrowing a little bit more money, it's not something that's going to sink you. And realistically, if you can qualify for the payment, you don't have to have 20% saved or 3% saved. which is really, really nice. And so that, I would say those are kind of the two biggest things is just like the common misconception among, people my age or even, above. But, there's a lot of in and outs of the business that people don't know about, but I wish we would talk more about it, like you said, at a younger age, especially in high school, like how to build credit and how to set yourself up for success, and what hurts your credit and what doesn't, because there are a lot of things that people do that they don't realize are hurting their credit, and then it takes a long, long time to build it back up. And so just educating them early on creates a situation where they can then plan their own future, and they're not hand tied by a credit score that they didn't know they were creating.
Yes, I mean, I know some people in their 30s that they don't have any credit at all.
Right.
And they're like, well, I just pay cash for stuff. I, don't want to, because I think they hear the horror stories of getting credit cards and then having bad credit and then not being able to do things with it.
Yep.
They're just like, nope, I'm not doing it at all. And that can, that can hinder you as well with having no credit, and have to build that up and be able to get kind of a history with that. Okay. And I definitely think the misconception, and I was under that impression, you have to have 20% down and you have to have a work history of 2 years. I wish, looking back, I'm like, gosh, dang it. Like, I could have bought a house while I was a paramedic. And, what would that look like now with, financial freedom and just having a secure place that I could call mine? It's different, but I think if you have the knowledge, continue to share it, continue to get that information out, because there's, there is a lot of lenders and there are a lot of real estate agents, but it's the people that you're impacting with that information that hopefully that can be shared, and even if they don't know everything, like I'm like, hey, you could, put a 0.5% down for the purchase price, but Bryson's the man to go to, like I don't have all those details.
Right.
He does though, and that's really incredible. And I think another misconception just on the home buying is everyone's like, oh, my dream home, my dream home, my dream home, my dream home. No. National average is 3 to 5 years that you're in your house. Mm-hmm. And it's so different because the older generation, they homesteaded. They bought land, they built their house, they died in their house,
Completely. Yeah.
That's not the way that it is anymore, And so when people are like, oh my gosh, I have to pay this loan for 30 years, it's like so many variables are changing within that, and it's probably not going to be the same loan for 30 years. No. And it's not going to be the same house for 30 years. I'll give you props if you're in it longer than 5 years, because life changes. You have kids, you have jobs that move you, you have locations, you have school districts. I mean, there's so many things outside of just the walls that you live in that change.
Yeah.
Who are you, like, I think I know this, but who's your favorite person or clientele to work with?
Yeah, I would say young families, like first-time home buyer families, have been my absolute favorite. I've had signings where I'm sitting in there and they've got the 9-month-old baby and the 3-year-old toddler and the 6-year-old that wants to watch movies on the iPad, and they're all sitting in there in the signing room. But the parents are so beyond happy because they're moving out of the 2-bed, 2-bath or the 3-bed, 2-bath where the kids are having to share rooms, and now they're into a home that they can call their own. They can start to build these memories with their family, and I've never met a more thankful group of people. And I'm a super thankful person, and I love sending thank you cards and everything like that, and they're some of the most gracious and generous people and thankful people that I've ever worked with. I like all of my clients for the most part, but the first-time home buyers are just so beyond thankful that they're achieving something that they, like you said, I get to call this my own. Like, I worked for this. I bought this. This is mine. And now life is kind of, life is good, and I can build off of this. That's, the first part of the American dream, I suppose. But those people are so beyond thankful, and I'm just thankful to get to work with them because, like you just said, there's a ton of lenders and there's a ton of agents, and, everybody can do a good job, but the fact that, they had faith in me to get the transaction done and take care of them. And it goes even beyond the signing table. Like I call my clients 1 month after we close to check in on them, see how they're doing, everything good with the house. We talk a year later, just checking in, seeing how they're doing. I remember kids' names and things like that. And because we became friends during the transaction. And so that's just good quality people. And those clients turn into lifelong friends and lifelong clients. Like they trust you with the process because you took such good care of them in the beginning. And it is intimate for a lot of people. Yeah. And the person that's buying their 12th house, maybe it's not as intimate. It's a little bit more about the numbers. But that first-time home buyer, it's intimate, and they're scared, and they're taking a leap of faith. And if you can help, foster that confidence and the fact that you've got a great agent that you're working with, you've got a good team behind you on the lending side, all of these good people are kind of banding together to help you achieve what you're wanting to achieve. There's no one more thankful. And so it's a lot of fun, and it's humbling. And that's probably my favorite clientele, even though it's sometimes the hardest to work with as far as the numbers go.
Yeah.
But there's some amazing people to work with for sure.
Well, and it's a very vulnerable process to go through. I mean, you're looking at a lot of their history, a lot of things that people don't want to share about, their finances and, why is, your credit score this? And it's not belittling them. It's just you are trying to figure out all of those different variables on how can we fix this and what can we change and what can we help you with, instead of, like, oh, well, why would you buy that? Like, that's not doing good for you.
Right.
And so for the folks and the new time, first time home buyers, they are very thankful because a lot of them didn't think that they could get into a home, and they didn't think that, it would be them that would be able to call something theirs. And, you talk about the American dream, and I don't know if home buying is the American dream anymore.
I don't know that it is either. For some people, it really is because it's instilled in them. And typically their parents are the ones that, set down their roots and stayed in the house for 30 years. My parents have been in their current home for a long, long time. And so I think for some people it really is, but some people it's not. But the people ultimately that want to create that family life, I think that is the first step in saying this is ours as a family, and then moving beyond that. I definitely don't know that it's the American dream for all anymore, because it's a scary situation and at times more risky than maybe it was previously. But everybody's got different dreams, but the ones that want to purchase that home are pretty thankful.
Yeah. Well, I remember, in my younger ages, I'm like, why am I going to buy a house? Because that means I'm tied down to something.
Yep.
And boy, was that wrong. I could have been renting that out if I moved somewhere else. There's so many different options that you can have and that you can use when you do purchase a house. And if that's one thing, if I could go back and tell my younger self, no, you need to, it's not going to tie you down to a certain place, because I didn't know where I wanted to go. I didn't know, if I wanted to be out of state. I didn't know if I was going to be in Boise. I, was trying to figure out if I wanted to be close to the family or not, or just life. I mean, that was a young age living. And now I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have, but that's how you learn, and that's how you just teach other people, buying a house does not mean that you're stuck.
Correct. No, it doesn't. And I would agree with that. I had the same misconceptions before getting into this business or, whatever it is. But no, I had the same kind of thing where it was I'm not sure that I want to buy, because if I buy, now I've got 30 years of paying this house, blah, blah, blah. And it's you start to read and you start to, now that I'm in it, I'm seeing no, people turn over a lot. And it's not because of any particular reason other than scenarios change. Yep. And there's other opportunities to expand, whether it's their real estate portfolio or they're moving or they're wanting to set their kids up for success, so they're getting a home for them to live in. Every situation's different. But I wish I would have bought when I initially moved to Boise. because one, prices are higher now, but two, it's just, you can create a lot of financial freedom through that, and you're not completely tied or locked down, like I think a lot of people previously thought.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. So your uncle
Yep.
is like very high up head. I don't know if you want to speak on that. But what I thought was so unique was when we met for coffee, you didn't bring that up until very, very late. And I give you kudos for that, because so many people want to kind of ride the piggyback on, who has been in the industry and kind of boast about that. How has that dynamic been within your family, within your career? What does that look like now?
No, that's funny you say that. I definitely don't lead with it. Just because I want people to trust me for me and my knowledge and my knowledge base, and the fact that I'm in this business because I care about people and because I want to help them. And I happen to get into the business through a connection with my uncle, who happens to be fairly high up in my company. But the dynamic, it's funny. When I moved here initially for my internship, I signed a 3-month lease with a buddy that happened to live here. And when that ended and I decided to stay, I didn't have anywhere to go. And so for a month and a half, I moved into his house. Now, granted, he travels a lot for work and to our corporate office and things like that. So he wasn't here a ton, but when he was, he's such a wealth of knowledge because he's been in the business for 25 years, and he's been really successful with it. And so just getting to listen to the ins and outs of the business at a corporate level, and as listen to his wisdom and everything like that, I've really soaked it in. And for that month and a half, I was a complete sponge, along with when we're together now. We're super good friends, and we do a lot of things together, and we travel together, and we go to McCall together. But a lot of our conversations are around the mortgage thing because it's such a big part of our life. And so I feel super fortunate to be able to just learn from him and listen to his knowledge, along with everybody that he's introduced me to. And it's definitely helped me. I talk about there was a lot of luck involved in me getting to where I am, and he plays a super large part in that. But it's changed the family dynamic because, like, we'll be around my parents or my aunt and uncle or my other aunt and uncle or cousins, and him and I are still talking about work, or there'll be, times where I've got to take a phone call with a client, and it's 9 p.m. on a Saturday, and we're having, family dinner or, whatever it is, or we're out on the boat, and I'm like, I got to go back. I need to do something. He understands because he's been there. And my parents understand now because they've seen it enough in the last, 2.5 years that they understand. But the dynamic is definitely different, and him and I connect more in the family dynamic than maybe I do with other family members, simply because not only are we close on a personal level, but in a business sense, we've got a really strong relationship too. And so, yeah, he's a great guy, and I'm super glad that he introduced me to the business. But it's typically not the thing that I lead with, and he's played a large part in my success, but just a wealth of knowledge, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you can contribute a lot of the success to him into what he's doing and how he's, kind of brought you on. But at the end of the day, it's still what you're doing, and it's still your connections, and it's still how you're doing business. And I think that would be different if you were like, oh, my uncle is so-and-so, like, and kind of name dropping people.
Sure.
Where it's like, no, you're putting in your own time and effort. It just happens that your uncle is also within the industry and kind of got you in. And I do think it's really valuable that you don't lead with that, because then people, just have a different perspective. Like, my dad worked at Candy County Paramedics, and I was like, I will never work there unless he has retired. Mm-hmm. And it was simply because I did not want people to think that I rode his wave. I didn't want his, name tied to me specifically, to be like, oh, you're Dave Dixon's daughter. Like, no, I wanted to be me, you know, and that has shifted. Like, I didn't, go with them, and things have happened and life has changed. And I'm so glad that it's Bryson Smith. It's not so-and-so's nephew
exactly.
or, you know, that's who my uncle is or whatnot. I just think it holds so much more valuable or so much more value to you.
I agree. Yeah, it's and even within the company, we work in a fairly large company, you know, with hundreds of employees, and I would say the majority of them don't know that I am related to him or have a connection with him, and it's just not something that needs to be brought up. And when someone finds out, it's awesome because it's like I get to speak really highly of him and I know him on a personal level. But it's really nice gaining the respect, like you said, of just like, wow, this young man is doing some really good things and he's working really hard and he's creating quality connections. And I attribute a lot of that to the knowledge that I've gained from him. And I still, you know, yesterday I shot him an email, and there are some conversations that are kind of below what he's doing at this point, obviously, but he's always willing to kind of just give me his feedback as far as like, hey, when I was doing what you were doing, this is what I would say.
Yeah.
It's fun getting to reflect like that, but still also create a business that is mine and the relationships are mine. But then getting to, you know, when that connection is made, it's like, oh, wow, like he's such an amazing guy. And then I kind of get to hype him up and talk about how amazing he is. But yeah, it's a great relationship, and he's been a huge player in my last 2.5 years.
That's awesome. So besides, you know, kind of the college and the lending, like what else are you doing out there?
Yep. Well, living in Idaho has been amazing because I'm all about the 4 seasons. In the summer, which is what we're obviously experiencing right now, is like being by bodies of water, whether that's floating the Boise River or going to Lucky Peak with friends and lounging out there or paddleboarding. My big thing is wake surfing. I love to surf behind the boats. So, you know, we go up to the cabin in McCall and we surf, and my parents just got a new boat, and so that's always fun. But, yeah, I always make the joke, I don't need to buy a boat as long as I have family and friends that have boats that I can always go behind. So that's my big thing, is I just love being in the sun and in bodies of water during the summer. In the winter, I love the snow. I used to snowboard and ski a lot, and then I kind of found a little bit of a passion for snowmobiling.
Okay.
Because it takes less effort. There's an engine that propels me up the hill, and it's just a lot of fun and a skill set that I never thought that I would pay attention to. But I love to snowmobile, and the mountains here in Idaho, among with the surrounding states, are some of the most amazing I've ever seen. And so it's kind of the dream city to live in here in Boise, because the real estate market is you know, booming, and people are moving here, and it's growing, and the city is fun. And then you take all of that, and then I also get to experience all of my passions in the outdoors, and my family is super outdoorsy. And so I just probably couldn't see myself in any other place, but I do a lot of that. And then also in the winter, a reason that I don't snowboard or ski much anymore, because the risk of injury, I referee college basketball.
Oh, very cool.
Yep. And so I referee, you know, a bunch of different conferences across the Western U.S. And so that kind of takes me traveling sometimes on the weekends, which is another passion of mine. In the spring and the fall, where the weather's not as amazing here in Boise, you'll typically find me traveling to all my favorite places, typically here in the U.S. But yeah, love to travel. And so being able to referee college basketball, stay active, and kind of stay connected to the sports world, which is where I feel like my exercise science degree or background still kind of plays a part. You know, getting to referee college basketball is just a lot of fun.
How did you get into that?
Yeah, that started because my parents, when I was younger, I think I was like, well, it was as young as I can remember, they put on a high school basketball camp. It was a team camp where teams could come and, you know, get better and team bonding and everything like that. Well, they would play games because they had tournaments there too, and they always needed referees. And so I remember, like, when I was super young, I would help with the YMCA young kid stuff, and I'd go and volunteer with my dad, and we'd referee the 5-year-old basketball games, and I was, you know, 13 or something like that. And then when I got into high school, they had this basketball camp that had middle schoolers, high schoolers, and I would help, you know, be at the games there and referee. And then when I got into college, it was a great way because I could kind of pick my schedule. Like if I wanted to referee Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night and have my weekend nights free to hang out with friends, I could do that and I could make $100 a night. And as a college student, that was really nice, you know, textbooks and everything like that. And so when I went to Oregon State, I got in contact with the referee assigner over there who assigned middle school and high school basketball games. And I started doing that kind of just as a side gig to help supplement the cost of college. And in turn, I met some amazing people. Some people that I've done loans for at this point and everything like that, but are still friends of mine. And they were like, you know, after I did it for 2 years, they were like, you're kind of good at this. Like you could do something with this. And I remember they said, you should go to camp. And I was like, what do you mean camp? And they said referee camp. I was like, they have camps for that?
I had no idea they had camps for referees.
Yeah. And so similar to there's basketball camps in the summer or tournaments, typically there's like a referee camp that it may be going along with it where those referees are getting training on how to be better and better officiate the games. And they do it during the summer. And so I went to this camp and I just really wanted to get better for like doing high school games because you get paid like $15 more a game. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could make like $45 more per night if I'm doing higher high school games. So I wanted to get better. And there happened to be some college referee assigners there. And in college, they referee by conference or they assign by conference. And so there was several conferences that had their officials coordinators there. And they took a liking to what they saw, I suppose, and asked if I was interested in refereeing college basketball. And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Like, I get to travel, and they started telling me, like, what you could make and, you know, everything like that. And I was like, that kind of sounds like the best of all worlds. And so I got hired by, like, 3 college conferences that summer. And then from there, it's kind of taken off. And a couple years ago, I stopped doing high school because I didn't really have time for it with my college schedule. And now I just referee college basketball, kind of up to, you know, NCAA Division II, NAIA Division I.
Wow.
All over the place. So it's fun. I have, like, there's colleges here locally that I referee. And then, you know, as far as Alaska, Canada, California.
How incredible.
Yeah.
First of all, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yep.
And second of all, did you ever play basketball?
I played high school basketball, and then I wanted to play college basketball and ended up not, and decided to go to Oregon State instead of going to a smaller college. But I played high school basketball, and so I kind of always had that connection with it. My dad coached high school basketball when I was younger, and then just kind of had always been around the game. And I was always mad because I didn't feel like all of the referees were very good. And so I was like, well, I'm going to try that as well as make a little bit of money. And so I kind of just, once again, fell into it, you know? And so my life is constantly falling into some super cool jobs. But
it's cool that you are open to that, though. I think that's why sometimes, you know, we feel like it is just happening for us because we are so open to it, where other people are so goal oriented and they have to check these lists off and here's my to do and nope, that doesn't align with, you know, what I want. And it's like, let life figure it out for you. You know, like don't be so like strict on things.
Completely.
And that's how you fall into things. Like I would never have known that is even a possibility.
Right.
But everything has aligned for you. And it's just that, you know, openness of like, hey, yeah, sure, I'll try it out. Like, where is this going to go? I don't know.
Completely. And it's crazy because I've fallen into kind of both of those careers. Now, granted, the refereeing college basketball is kind of that side career that I really enjoy, but it's not obviously my full time.
Right.
But I fell into that. I was hired for college basketball when I was 20. And so I was refereeing athletes that were older than me.
Yeah.
Which was an interesting dynamic. And then, you know, coming here and kind of falling into the mortgage business, when I moved here, you know, I was, 22, almost 23, and I got into the mortgage space. And now being 24, it's, you know, it's like they think of me as really young, and I totally am. But I've just started out in these careers that I just happened to fall into and was like open to trying to experience at a really young age. And now I've created a fairly good base to kind of build off of. But I was always the guy with a plan until until obviously the physical therapy thing kind of fell through. And then I was like, well, I guess I just got to take life as it comes, because clearly the plan that I thought that I had wasn't going to work. And I think, sometimes we get tunnel vision to like, this is the life that I want. And then we get partially down the line and it's like, this isn't quite what I expected or quite what I wanted, or maybe it is. But, since then I've become very much the, like, I take life as it comes. And if like a new opportunity comes that maybe I would have never expected, like, I'm open to it. Yeah. And it's fun and it makes life exciting and not stagnant, which is nice. Yes. I am one of those people that I cannot have a stagnant life. No. And I'm sure throughout your life, you will always be told, you're so young, you're so young, you're so young, you're so young. But it's that drive that you have within you that is like, I'm going to the next thing. I don't know what that next thing is, but I'm going for it. And that's super awesome to watch, because I don't feel like I've had a younger person where I'm like, oh, they're kind of like me. Like, I don't know, just open. Like, what are you doing next? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Whatever comes. Like, whatever comes, because you can't plan that. So many things you cannot plan. And it's really hard to teach people, like, let's be a little bit less loose, and I don't know, how you can teach that to some people. It's just personalities. It's, I think, a lot of different things, but it's super awesome to watch you and see you, be young in the industry, not only for mortgages, but also, within basketball. Like, I could not imagine what is going through their heads too, of like, what does this kid know? He's so young, probably those comments get told to you a lot. It's a hard dynamic. Yeah. I remember my first year, like, the coaches, right? They're making really good money to coach these college athletes, and the athletes are on scholarship and things like that. And they're like, what is this 20-year-old doing here? Yeah. And it, like, you kind of had to do it with a chip on your shoulder, like with, I've got something to prove, and not in any kind of angry way, because I don't blame them, but just, the hard work and dedication to just like trying to get better and, get better at the craft or whatever it is. And same thing in mortgages. I just want to help people. And if I can gain knowledge from everybody around me and continue to like widen that sphere and, polish my skills and my people skills and helping people, like, it'll serve like long term, and who knows what's next. I'm just more than open. People are like, oh, how long are you going to be in Boise? And I was like I want to be here a long time, but like, I'm more than open to like any opportunity that comes, because Absolutely. I'm just like, the world is kind of your oyster, and I want to experience it all. Yeah, no, that's super, super exciting to hear. And glad that we're really on that, aspect for it, because who knows, like, life may bring you a different opportunity, and exactly. We're never tied down to anything. So Bryson, thank you so much for coming on. While we wrap things up, how can people reach out to you and learn more about lending, learn about, becoming a homeowner, what it looks like, having all their questions answered? What is it? How do they get a hold of you? Totally. Yeah, there's a few ways. I've got my business Instagram. It's at the Smith Group. It'll be a nice white picture of me. I just had that taken here a few weeks ago, but that's another way. You can Google my name, Bryson Smith, Synergy One Lending. It'll take you to my website. There's a video that kind of isn't all about me if you want to get to know me a little bit more, and all of the things that I kind of touched on today, as well as, you can always call or text me. My phone number is 541-519-1577. But I would say those three methods, one of them will definitely get you in touch. So. Awesome. Well, listeners, thank you again for yet another week. We are actually 25 episodes in, and this is so exciting to be, kind of a quarter way to 100. Never thought that I would get here, but I'm so excited that I have. So make sure, like I said in the beginning, head over to Apple Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share to all of your friends and loved ones, and get this podcast going. Anyways, have a great day, and we will catch you guys next week. Thank you for tuning into the show today. Your feedback is very important to me. If you could leave a review, as well as follow me on Instagram at rawthoughts.podcast, and email in at m.rawthoughts@gmail.com if you have any guest suggestions.